everybody, welcome to DIY, the public act show where you talk about DIY ethics, morals, ideas, and how they relate to your real, actual life. So each week, me, Andrew Lowry, I sit down with a couple of guests, and we talk about why they choose to do it themselves and why it's better than everything else. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome you all to DIY!
It's time for DIY.
Welcome back to the show. This is DIY. We're here in the chair hanging out. My name again is Andrew Lowry as always. So off the top of the show, I like to talk to everybody. I like to kind of talk about what I've been thinking about. And so this week on the show, we're talking about self-help. And so what I want to talk about with that, an idea I was thinking about, I do myself all the time. So a piece of advice off the top I want to give you is how I stretch myself too thin. So one of the things I do when I'm really sad, depressed, or just kind of anxious is I like to organize. So I distract myself. So I'll book a show, I'll make a TV show happen, I'll like contact all my friends, try to go out for the night or something. Either way, I try to distract myself by organizing. And what I end up doing is stretching myself way too thin. So I'll be doing about 30 things, and then I hit the 30th thing, and then I'm like, screw this. I just want to go in my bed and be under a blanket. So what I'm trying to give you a piece of advice off the top is don't stretch yourself too thin. Don't try to hide how you really feel within an event or something else. Don't try to distract yourself. Deal with your problems head on if you can. If you can't, I understand that. But if you can handle your problems head on, do so, and don't stretch yourself too thin. So that's my rant for the day. But we're talking now. Today we're talking about self-help. So each week we have a topic. This week is self-help. And so what I'm talking about with self-help is, you know, not just the sort of idea of I need to eat better, I need to exercise more. I'm talking mentally. You know, when I'm talking about stretching yourself thin, it's about how people sometimes overwhelm themselves. Sometimes you're too busy. Sometimes the craziness of this thing we call life gets to you, and you sort of overwhelm yourself. And so this week I want to explore really sort of how to keep yourself mentally good, how to sort of you know, how to just be a happy person and try to get yourself going forward. So I got a couple of guests with me on the show today. They're going to hang out with us a little bit later in the show. But off the top, you've probably noticed we had our theme song play. Sonny Jim Clifford, our house band, he's out this week. He got malaria. He's in the hospital. You know, pray for him. We'll see what happens. But always here with me is Mr. Carbia. So Carbia, what's going on, buddy? How you doing?
Not half bad, despite all that you just heard, and also I mean, well, not to like break down any vibes, but praying, well, not only are we praying for Clifford, but also for the survivors of all the the hurricanes throughout the states.
Yeah, no,
Harvey
for sure.
and Irma.
I mean, this weekend Hurricane Irma is hitting Florida right now. I got friends in Florida. Hope they're all safe out there. We're thinking about here at DIY. But Carbia, just wanted to say hi, welcome you to the show. So we also on the show each week we have a featured artist. So usually the artist is in studio, but this week we have an artist out of Chicago. Her name is Tiffany Mallory. If you look behind me here, this is all of her art. I love it. I think it's beautiful. She mailed me this from Chicago and gave me an artist statement. So I thought it would be fun to read it on air. So let's try this. So not sure if you need an artist statement, but just in case, I don't really have a lot of space in my life to be moody. So I project those feelings onto my personal work. Okay, I get that. Like 90% of my stuff is anxiety. 90% of my stuff is angry-looking girls because of that. That's my self-care, I guess. Having an outlet and also a skincare routine. So that's what Tiffany Mallory has to say for all you here. Check her stuff out online. I'm sure if you Google Tiffany Mallory art, you'll find more. Also look up Feminist Fiber Art. She's a part of their collective. So, yeah, that's awesome and stuff. So I'm having a great time here on the show. We're going to go to a cutaway. We got a special segment for you this week. Our special segment is called Lend Me Your Ears. We now have a music reviewer. We're so legit. We're so cool. We're so pro. He made a music, it's Mikey Clappis. He made a music review for us of one of my favorite bands, Werner Herzog's new album. So let's go to that right now. And when we come back, I'll have guests sitting next to me. So see you in a minute.
Good evening, I'm Mikey Clappis, and this is Lend Me Your Ears, the only album review show hosted by me, Mikey Clappis. Wonderful American by Werner Herzog is a 6-course meal of existential melancholy delivered through a steady stream of tuneful, spaced-out indie folk. A cursory attempt to categorize the debut album of this Oakland group might spring to mind adjectives like experimental and psychedelic, but I think these words are too subjective for a music review. After all, what's experimental to one listener might be totally ordinary to the next. The only thing that psychedelic tells me is that if you played it for your square friends, they might ask what drugs the artist was on when they made it. That one never gets old. So let's get specific. I mentioned indie folk, and I think this is a good starting point as far as aesthetics go. The opener, Birthday Song, quickly backs this up with a twangy guitar riff and some adept finger-picking. Our singer kicks us into a lovesick soliloquy, his voice equal parts dark and nasal. He pays tribute to the band's folk predecessors with a focus on world-weary lyrics and a few vocal scoops where necessary. The bridge makes good on the psychedelic promise as a bit of flangy feedback launches us into the stratosphere, a cosmic refrain of I believe, almost daring its listeners to fix their eyes to the heavens for proof of UFOs. The vocalist seems perfectly aware of the combination's nerdy evocations. Indeed, the bridge feels like something that would make John Linnell from They Might Be Giants proud. The band deftly contrasts jangly folk rock with some sonic sketches from outer space, and this dichotomy carries right through to the next song, Dark Places, which meshes harpsichord tones and eerie synth with catchy, nihilistic chorus suitable for an apocalyptic campfire sing-along. Not like Kumbaya, more like Andrew Jackson Jihad meets the Mountain Goats meets Nick Cave. And the rest of the album pretty much follows suit. The haunting melody and ethereal strings of the song James Bond theme belie a heavy-hearted tale of what could have been. The frank sardonic tone and straight-ahead chords of Emily would make it feel at home on a late-era Pavement release, with a genre-crossing coda that only reinforces the band's trippy, self-aware sense of humor. And if it sounds like I'm being too broad, you should know the next track is a cover of a song by Pere Ubu, those lords of alt rock weirdness. The album closes with the expectantly beachy Down by the Ocean, complete with watery reverb. In short, Werner Herzog provides bittersweet interstellar pop folk for a sad, hopeful world that dreams of something greater out there. But their offbeat sensibilities never get in the way of solid musicianship and good lyricism, so they shouldn't be taken as novelty. Still, if aliens ever get stood up on prom night, I have an album they might like to listen to.
Hey everybody, welcome back to DIY. I hope you enjoyed that music review. Check out Werner Herzog, check out Mikey Clappus. He's going to be doing a lot more music reviews come the future, so look forward to those each week. But either way, we're back here on the show. I introduced you to him before the video. My good friend Carbia, master of video games, always here on the show. How we doing, Carbia?
Kicking ass as ever.
Okay, so I always ask you about video game news, what's going on. We're playing Dr. Mario right now. We're talking about self-help. Figured Dr. Mario's a relevant game. You like this game? You into Dr. Mario?
Ever since the SNES report, if you will.
Nice, nice. So I wanted to ask you a question. I just found this out. It's very interesting to me. Maybe our audience finds it interesting as well. But Mario has retired and is now not a plumber anymore. He has left the plumbing business. How do you feel about that, Carbia?
A little bit of the red ass, but
okay.
I'll get used to it one way or another. I mean, Miyamoto, what the fuck?
Yeah, I mean, do you think Mario deserves this break? I mean, he's still trying to save the Princess Peach all the time, so I don't really think maybe the two jobs was getting too much for him. I don't know.
Pretty much. I mean, I see where the or Miyamoto and his boys. I'm trying to go with said career change.
Yeah,
it's insane.
Hey, it is insane. So Carbia, we're talking about self-help today. So what's your happy place? I'm asking everybody that today. What's your happy place when you think, oh, this is where I want to be all the time?
Although I can be like mostly a cynic at times, I mean, but positivity pretty much counts. Instead, in the latter case, definitely just being on the subway.
Oh yeah.
Or just any line for that matter.
Very cool. I get it. Public transport. You're just moving.
Or hiking, taking long hikes.
There you go. Solitary man.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, move over, John Rambo.
There you go. Yeah, definitely. Carby is the Rambo of the show. I just want everybody to know he's every Sylvester Stallone character wrapped up into
Nothing is over.
There you
just
go.
Don't turn it off.
Well, thanks as always, Carby. Glad to have you.
On gaming's also my escape, for the record.
Yeah, gaming. There you go.
Cool.
I think that's you can always talk about escapism as another point to sort of get your happy place in. But either way, we're here on the show. I got my guests. I want to welcome all my flipping guests. So thank you all. Thank you all. I'm clapping for you. I'm clapping for you. So next to me, I have three people. They're beautiful and they're amazing. Thank you so much for being here. So we'll go down the line, sort of do a quick intro and get to know you a little bit. So we'll start all the way at the end. My fine gentleman, what is your name, sir?
Peter Rasasan.
So Peter, I brought you on for self-help, so tell me a little bit about what you do.
You know, I really kind of take the mindfulness route.
Okay.
You know, often check in with myself, try to take a step back from myself and see where I'm at, and then go from there.
Hey, there you go, man. I love it. So next to you we have
I'm Craig Lewis.
Craig Lewis. So Craig, thank you for being on the show. Much
you.
obliged to have you. So why don't you tell us a little bit about you for maybe people who don't know you?
I'm on a journey that took me to a really wild place, and as I come through that, I've learned that the secret to happiness is choosing to be happy.
That is very true. It's a level of delusion that keeps you going, right? Yeah, perfect. So Craig, you're also a writer. You have a couple books out. We'll feature those a little later in the show. But I'm really happy to have you. Thank you so much for coming.
The delusion is real.
The delusion is real. Hashtag. So lastly, we have.
I'm Paula Marie.
So this is Paula. I've been friends with Paula. We've known each other like 8 years now.
Yeah.
So Paula does folk punk on a piano, and I always loved it. So Paula, you're a musician. You live in Brattleboro, Vermont. What else do you do?
Well, professionally, I work with children and families in a lot of different capacities, childcare and stuff like that.
So kind of like private health, like sector a little bit.
After school programs, summer camp.
Very cool.
I've been a preschool teacher, special ed para.
Awesome.
Stuff like that.
Well, I brought you on because, you know, we talked a lot about before the show sort of the self-help ideas you have and sort of what you've done in order to, you know, I know out in Brattleboro, you guys have dealt with a lot of, you know, loss out there and losing people. And I think a lot of us in the music scene or any sort of scene in general, we're hitting that time where, you know, you lose a friend and it really affects you and how do you deal with that down the line. So I'm really happy to have all of you. We're going to get serious today, but I think we'll have a lot of fun, keep it light, you know.
Happy to be here. Thank you.
So I asked my man Carby here. I'm going to ask you three. What's your happy place? We could start with you, Peter, if you want. So Peter, what's your happy place?
I've got two.
Okay, I'm into it.
You know, in my brain, my happy place, I'd say, is probably on a beach next to a palm tree.
Nice.
With the ocean.
Classic Corona.
Yeah, exactly.
By Corona.
In real life, it's probably a metal show.
Yeah.
In the mosh pit.
Fair.
Getting hitting people.
That's solid. That's a good one.
Yep.
That's like release. That's what I feel like.
Exactly.
One of my favorite moments in my life. This was at a Streetlight Manifesto show, and this is when I learned I love ska music. Right. I'm in the pit. Some guy starts throwing elbows. You're at a ska show. Nobody throws elbows at a ska show.
Can't throw both.
This giant shirtless dude grabs the guy throwing elbows by the shirt. He goes, "This is ska. We dance, fucker," and punches him in the face, and then just starts skanking again. And I'm like, I love ska music. This is awesome. Fight violence with violence. Yeah, that's the only way to do it. So that's a good time. I love In the Pit. That's a good one. So Craig, how about you? What's a happy place for you?
Wow. I like my cat.
Nice. So alone with the cat?
Max the cat is my happy place. And additionally, I just like being alive and knowing that everything around me is, you know, really just there, and I can be there too and have my peace. So anywhere I go, I have found that my happy place is within my heart, and that was long fought for.
Yeah.
And so additionally, I also love traveling, and I like going places where I've never been and being known by people on the street and having
So maybe
them
like a sense of
recognize me. So
discovery.
I like that. I like the fact that I've somehow had an impact on the world, and that people I don't know want to.
Like a non-horrible Christopher Columbus.
I would like to think of myself more so as a liberator.
There you go.
And a revolutionary for good.
Yeah.
For the people. So different than.
But I think that's awesome that you're saying you found it within. And I think, you know, we're talking about escapism and sort of that's the outlook I'm kind of putting on this. But finding within, I think that's great. That's awesome. So Paula, how about you? What's your happy place?
I feel really lucky in that I have a bunch of happy places.
Nice.
First and foremost is definitely with my husband Pete over here, wrestling
so these
and stuff.
These are partners. We got,
yes,
you know.
partners, my partner, and just generally having a really strong support system. I feel really lucky for the people in my life. Also, Mosh Pit. There's a lot of really great metal bands up in Vermont, surprisingly enough, including Barishi, all-time favorite band. Gotta give a shout out.
Shout outs. We love shout outs here.
Peasants, also some excellent metal bands from Brattleboro, Vermont.
If you haven't been to Brattleboro, Vermont, great music scene, great people.
You gotta
Always
go.
hit it.
Hopefully I visit there before I die.
Yeah.
You gotta go.
We'll bring you, Carvey, next time you go up.
You can do it.
And I also really love to make comics.
Oh, so Paula made a special present for our audience today.
I did. I have.
Paula, you made a comic, so tell us a little bit about it.
Well, this is actually, it's a response to my doctor. I feel like every single time I walk in my doctor's office, he's always trying to push like really heavy drugs immediately. When,
Yeah.
like, oh, I'm anxious. Oh, well, let me give you this like crazy amount of hard addictive drugs. And I don't feel comfortable with that. So this was sort of my response to that. I have several copies, not enough for everyone in this room, but at least 8
We'll be
lucky
handing
people will
them out
get
a
the
little
special
later.
edition.
I think I'm going to take pictures.
Present this one to you, Andy.
Amazing. So it's beautiful. Oh, this is awesome.
So.
And I'm going to take pictures of this, and we're going to post it online later so you can read it. Everybody watches. That'd be awesome. So yeah, no, I definitely agree with you that sort of the whole overprescribing. I think one of the things I wanted to explore today is sort of, I feel like the new generation, or us people, whatever we call ourselves. Millennials, whatever you want to call us. But either way, we're looking at mental health in a different way. You know, one of the things I think about a lot, like I said off the top of the show, is I spread myself thin. That's sort of I distract myself from the real problem that's happening in my life.
On the same damn boat.
There you go, buddy. And so that's what it's all about, is sort of finding this new way to work through it. You're saying your doctor's trying to hit you up with a bunch of pills. We just became legal here in Massachusetts. Can we get an applause for that? I like weed. We all like weed.
Hell yeah!
Legalism
for the win!
I don't mean to push that. I mean, if you don't like it, you don't like it, and everybody has their own choice. But either way, it's legal here, and I feel like, for me, I self-medicate, and self-medication is a dangerous thing, and you can go too far one way, and I don't need all this preamble and all that stuff. But I wanted to ask you three, how do you feel maybe self-help is viewed now? How do you feel like people view self-help, and maybe what's a way people are doing it wrong? So we could start with you, Paula, since we started with Peter on the other end. So maybe what's sort of something you see, maybe a tip or something that people aren't doing properly,
I try not to judge other people too hard, because I don't know what they're going through, just as a sort of precursor there. But I think it's really important to be really honest with yourself, and I think a lot of people kind of deny maybe, I don't know, desires, or maybe they're into something that they're not ready to explore. So I think just being really honest with yourself and with the people around you can help you be more free and less destructive, less self-destructive, and also destructive of relationships.
I think being having self-realization and being self-aware is a really important thing to have, and I think sometimes it's getting lost, through the shuffle, because when you're able to just, have sort of people inflate your ego via the internet or whatever it is, it's kind of hard to really question yourself. So I think that's really important. Craig, how about you? What's maybe something you think?
Well, I think that I've been fortunate to have hit rock bottom so many times.
Yeah.
That it taught me what the real meaning of life, for me at least. And so when that is applied in terms to others, and how I look at the world, I don't think anyone's doing anything wrong as far as how they cope, or whatever term you want to use, because I think everyone does what they do to try to not be in pain. I think our society and the mental health system and the world at large often looks at people who are doing whatever they're doing, whether it's playing video games or drinking too much or opiates or whatever it is, overeating, exercising. I think they look at that as a problem. I don't even believe in that word. So I think it's just evidence of somebody who's trying to not feel pain, and they just wake up the next day and do it again because they have not had somebody care enough to take the time to say, hey, you're actually trying to not feel pain. That's a sign of your journey toward wellness. Let's identify that and move forward with that, instead of criminalizing and denigrating people for just being human.
Yeah, no, I think that's very true. And now something I actually want to ask you, Craig, on top of that is sort of, I think maybe the way people are differentially looking at addiction is more of a disease, and I've also heard people maybe don't see it as a disease because a disease is something you can't control. And how do you feel on that sort of debate?
Well, I think that I never would have found out what a substance was without my first druggie being a psychiatrist.
Yeah.
And so because that is the prevalent way that people get introduced to drugs in our society, either by a psychiatrist or a medical provider providing painkillers, that I really just don't even think about it. I find my peace. I think the world is a beautiful place. I think there's a lot of things happening where people are experiencing extreme emotions and intense feelings, and I think there's nothing wrong with that. And so whatever results in a person embracing substances to a degree of getting them in trouble, that's more on society than that person, because that person wasn't taught or given the tools with which to cope with life, and most likely something was done to them by someone else who also wasn't taught. So I just rather like think about the world as how can I contribute to stopping that cycle and contributing to a better discourse on how to make the world a better place. I can't even think about what's wrong because I don't believe in it. I believe in what's right.
Well, and I think that's true. I think one of the things I hate is a sort of pull yourself up by your bootstraps mentality, because it's like, cool, if I had those bootstraps, you don't think I would have pulled them way earlier? And so sort of victim blaming and sort of like, you know, and like you're saying, any of these people getting into real trouble, it's all systematic from, you know, you look at the you look at it from a perspective of trying to find a real problem, not just blaming victims or looking at them as if someone's a criminal. You're sort of looking at the broader picture and finding out the full story.
Yes, and the reality is as much as I detest that saying, pull yourself up by the bootstraps, because it's so insulting to anybody who's struggling.
Yeah.
The reality of this world is, at the end of the day, no one's really going to save your ass unless it's you. So sometimes realizing that statement, as hurtful as it is, actually is one of the most valuable things. The people in life who aren't nice to you or actually hurt you with those words is one of the most valuable gifts they're giving you. If you can just find a way to see that, which usually results in you first hitting rock bottom, then 20 times or however many, then however long it takes you to learn that, you learn it and then you grow.
Well, I think it's like you said, it's the framing. I think when people say the bootstraps line, it's more of like, why don't you just pull yourself up by your bootstraps? When in reality, what people should be doing is they find your inner strength. And that's a big thing we talk about on the show. For me, music saved my life. Music helped me find direction, helped me find confidence. And so that helped me get out of a really dark period. Peter, I don't want to leave you all alone on the end there.
That's all good.
You know, how do you feel about what we're talking about? What do you think is sort of, do you think that maybe the systematic problems, those are the things we should be looking at more?
Yeah, definitely. You know, I really believe that everybody's their own expert. And I think, you know, with the internet and the medical system how it is now, you have a bunch of people other than you telling you what you should do.
Yeah.
And, you know, I think if you can, you know, over time practicing, just checking in with yourself and, you know, really naming and acknowledging what you need can go a long way.
That's very true. I definitely agree to that. I think that, like we were saying, self-awareness and sort of not just, you know, the people, I'm not a hypochondriac. Like, literally, my arm could be half off. I'm like, I'll go till next week.
Look at you, Martin Short. From Inner Space.
Yeah, that's good. But, you know, I really sort of see, like, self-help. And what I'm really trying to explore today is sort of, like we're saying, an inner peace, a sort of inner strength, and sort of finding this direction. Now, let me get a little more, we'll get a little more surface value with what I'm talking about. What are some easy things that has helped you guys sort of find that nice happy place? You know, for me, I do smoke cigarettes, and I know that's bad for my health, but it's sort of, I need to replace it with something else. But the sort of alone time, the 5 to 8 minutes of just centering yourself, being quiet, that's something for me that helps sort of zen me out, get me in the place. Maybe we'll start with you, Peter, again. So, Peter, how about you? What would you say is maybe a little thing you do to sort of keep that mental health going well?
It's going to sound kind of stupid, but, you know, almost daily I'll get to the point, I do social work for a living, and it can be really tough at times.
Yeah.
But I think of myself in space, and then I take a literal step backwards and try to see myself and what's going through my head and think, like, you know, is that a rational thing I'm thinking right now?
Yeah.
Is it or is it not? And, like, you know, just kind of really checking in with myself diligently.
Before you wreck yourself.
Yeah. And the more you do it, the more you practice it, the easier it is.
Yeah. No, I think that's very true, and that your problems aren't as big as they might be. And, you know, you talk about you're a social worker. I work in TV news, and so all day, every day, I'm exposed to traumatic events. Yeah. I mean, Charlottesville really affected me. I watched all of that footage at work, raw, uncut, and especially even with Hurricane Harvey hitting Houston, I watched all that raw footage, and that stuff hurts to watch every day.
Don't forget about Irma.
Yeah, Irma's coming this weekend, and so like you're saying, I tend to, after work, not bring anything home with me. And I'm sure being a social worker, it's really hard not to, because you see a kid or family or anybody who's dealing with this, probably what we're talking about, rock bottom.
Yep.
And you're trying to help them cope through, and so I'm sure that's really hard, but that's a great piece of advice, is taking that step back and sort of separating yourself. It's important sometimes, right?
Definitely.
Yeah. So Craig, how about you? What would you say is maybe, taking a step back is an important thing, but maybe what's something, you seem like a super peaceful guy. Can I just put that out there? You seem more zen than I can ever be. What's sort of the tips? What's sort of how you got there?
I have a long way to go to get to where I want to be.
Understand.
It's been a couple years of madness for different interesting reasons, and I've embraced all of that as necessary. So that's what brought me my peace, is the fact that, well, being a survivor is awesome in that survival is to be respected. So whatever you do, whatever I had to do, or anyone has to do to get through those toughest moments, there may be hell to pay for it, but it actually helps you become who you are, and it's to be respected and not looked down upon, frowned upon, criminalized, or stigmatized by your own communities and more. Yeah. So for me, I need to be this way. And there's a lot of factors in life that make it difficult to do that. And so one or a couple ways I try to preserve what I have is not responding to people early in the morning when I wake up to these messages and emails, and B, as you mentioned earlier, the different beautiful things about living in Massachusetts is that there's accessibility to natural healing and self-help in that way. You can choose your medicine, if you will. So that has had a radically positive impact on my health, and it's quite noticeable to those around me. So I can actually say that proud. I'm not going to go all out here, but it makes a big difference. If you're from the state, you know about Massachusetts, you know what's going on with that.
We're picking up what you're putting down.
And it makes a massive difference.
It does, and I think that, with the way things are changing, at least here in the state, it's a destigmatization of it. It's not looking at it as a what's it, gateway drug. And so I've just recently started watching the show. I'm not trying to promote a show that is not this show on the show, but there's a new Netflix show called Disjointed, right? All right, it's made by the guys who made Big Bang Theory. Now, I watched it being an avid pot user. I wanted to see what the whole hype was about. Now, Kathy Bates is in it. She's pretty good. But it's basically, it's a show about, like, potheads written by people who have never touched weed and who are, like, 60-year-old, like, TV writers. And it's a really bad show. But they just, like, they at one point, like, call weed a gateway drug, or kind of insinuate that it was, that someone had, like, oh, my parents, they started with pot, then got to meth. And I was like, all right, well, I'm sure there's other circumstances that got them going up the drug chain. So, but yeah, either way, that's a non sequitur. I'm sorry for a rant, Justin. I'm sorry, but don't watch Disjointed.
Avoid it like the plague.
Yeah, there you go.
It's terrible.
It's terrible. It's garbage. Kathy Bates, come on, you're a great actress. You can do better.
Go back to
than
Waterboy.
Yeah, Waterboy. I was thinking more Misery.
Or fried green tomatoes.
Yeah, fried green tomatoes, Carbia. Deep cuts. So Paula, how about you? What is maybe a small, something that people can do to sort of better themselves with self-help, or at least something small, I think I started drinking more water recently. That has changed a lot. I think a great thing you just said is don't respond to emails first thing in the morning. But like I said at the top of the show, I like to distract myself with organization. So early in the morning, if I'm like, oh, I got so much to do, let's worry about this show 3 months from now. What are you doing, Andy? But for you, Paula, you have anything like that? Any small things you do?
Yeah, I mean, so many things. Like I said, with music, and just making sure that you have an outlet and that you're,
well, I think
really being
that's a great
honest
one.
with yourself. I think though, what I've learned is, I come from a family of artists and carpenters and all kinds of, the term DIY wasn't a thing in my house, but like my mom made my clothes and my dad carved me wooden toys and stuff like that. And so for me, actually, this is a little counterintuitive perhaps of the show, is trying to figure out when is it not a do-it-yourself project. Like, because I'm also very, very stubborn, and so I tend to I'm going to do this myself, and I tend to be very impulsive. Yeah. And I learned a lot of really negative self-help, a lot of self-harm and stuff when I was a kid. So kind of working through that stuff and realizing, finding the balance of, when do I need to call in my friends, and when do I need the word or the phrase chosen family is really important to me, to us in our houses. When is it time to call upon that support system, and when is it time to truly reach into yourself for whatever you need, and being honest about who do you need to turn to, and is it yourself, and is it, you know, just really reaching out to those people who, I know a lot of times for me it's hard to reach out to even the people who I know love me. It's like in the middle of the night when you're freaking out, you're depressed, you're anxious, whatever it is, you know, just realizing that those people who say that they love you, they really do love you.
They do, and the family you choose, I think that's so important. That's like, you know, these are all the lines I'm trying to say when I talk about how music scenes or just finding your passion in your creative space is really what helps build you up as a person. Like you're saying, your outlet, your passion, finding the family you choose. The music scene was the family I chose. The people in my band were the family I chose. The people who do this show are the family I choose. So all of this, you know, all of this equates back to just kind of like, I do think it's important to realize the fact that you can't do everything. Like, I don't know how to, like, you know, I don't know how to mic a band, so I get other people to mic a band. I don't know how to do this or the other thing, so, you know.
Or just figure things out, like.
I can't do my own teeth. I'm not a dentist. I can't cut my own hair, you know, so. I mean, those are dumb examples, bad examples.
Those are great examples.
So yeah, so I'm having a great time talking with you all. We're gonna go to a quick music video. This is from the band On the Cinder out of Buffalo, New York. And when we come back, we got plenty more talk, and we have Ozlo on the show today. They're gonna be performing a little later. So let's go to the music video, and we'll be right back.
Crashes through these broken blinds. Stagger up to get the evil out. Leave the flame, knowing on what I cannot find. In this desperate neighborhood, we drink to stave off the gloom. You can tell by the debris how to weigh in our shelters, waiting for the clouds to break. They're always coming back. I found his father across the sidewalk, pressed into the earth, living in broken glass. Queen of Wands, torn and faded. Queen of Wands, thrown away. Joy and satisfaction can't solve your mystery. Black cat at your feet, shadows your history. My lady fair, Queen of Wands. Peter skateboards out of chariots. We ride to reach our Colosseum. Huddle for warmth in the darkness. Expel our lungs in celebration. I found his brother across the sidewalk, pressed into the earth, living in broken glass. Queen of Wands, torn and faded. Queen of Wands, thrown away. Joy and satisfaction can't solve your mystery. Black cat at your feet, shadows your history. My lady fair, Queen of Wands. No one's got all the answers. Meaning's up to you. Fall from grace, rise to the throne. Strong's what you got.
Hey everybody, we're back here on DIY the show. My name is Andrew Lowry. If you're just tuning in, we're talking about self-help today. I got some beautiful guests with me. I got Peter, Paula, and Craig. Why isn't your name Mary? I'm sorry. I'm sure you hear that too much.
Never heard that before.
Too much. It's cool. It's cool. My name is Andy. My girlfriend's name is Amanda. So we get like, oh, it's so cute. Oh, Andy.
You can call
and
me
Mandy.
Mary if you need to. It's
Mary.
okay.
Is that your middle name?
Close.
Close. Very close. So either way, we're back here on the show. Craig, you're a writer. You write books. We actually have one of the copies here. You're Crazy. This is your first book?
Well, it's an anthology of people from the punk scene internationally who share their experience of dealing with mental health struggle, addiction, and trauma.
So basically, you found people and different punk musicians and sort of their what are some of the musicians you may have talked to?
I found them where they found me.
Yeah.
There's no we had no intention to bring people in who were famous or well known.
Mm-hmm.
We had the intention of just supporting people who wanted to share.
Share.
So
yeah.
I'm not going to share names right now.
Oh, fair enough.
But there's a wonderful selection of people from around the world sharing their true experiences of what they went through. And one thing I can say about that book is that every writer had their story concluded in an uplifting, positive way, which was not anywhere in the guidelines. It happened naturally. I think that's beautiful.
That's amazing.
That's
I think that's the thing people don't see. We're talking a lot about addiction today, but I think what it comes down to is becoming a broken person. I think for me, I'm definitely a broken person. It's something I don't talk about a lot, and I'm not only bringing this up because it's relevant. My mother, during high school, was addicted to drugs. All throughout high school, that's what happened to me. And so basically, we lost our house, we lost everything, and then we got out of it. She got clean. I remember the moment I had to look my mom in the face and say, you are fucking my life up. You need to get your shit together. And so for her, maybe that's her rock bottom. And she has said that to me, that's what it's been. And so, she's clean 10 years now. It's been amazing. So good for her. And that sort of journey. And I know when that happened, it was all because of other things. It wasn't because she was like, I love drugs. It was because I'm trying to make myself feel better. I'm trying to find this world. And so growing up and being out, and the year after I moved to Boston, and so my whole time in Boston has been this sort of journey of finding myself and finding what feels good, And so I'm really happy to talk about this with all of you. But I want to get a little more serious and a little more deeper into stuff. And you don't have to name names or get into it, but like I'm talking about, maybe what's in your book you have people's personal stories. Maybe what are some times that you've dealt with a situation? Like what's been a bad situation for you and something, hindsight you maybe would have done differently. Feel free, anyone.
It's, if I may, it's funny. We use the word bad and good to describe life experiences.
Yeah.
But it's really, in retrospective terms, in hindsight, like you said, there's no real bad experience. It's only something you can learn from, and then you can apply like what you get from it, and then you can decide if you want to look at it as positive or the opposite. Mm-hmm. So I can think of pretty much every experience in my life up till very recently, including every day now, where I've learned from something that I had to feel something from the result of my actions and my words, and then check myself.
Yeah.
And then move forward. And the name of the game for me is forgiveness. Mm. So I've had to learn that as I live my life, and I think for most anybody, we can beat ourselves up for the choices we've made or the actions we've taken or the words we've said. But we also must really recognize and respect the context in which we've learned those phrases and those behaviors or those, however we cope.
Yeah.
And there's a history behind all of that. There's a cause. There's a root. It goes back to even when we're younger, we may not even know what that is.
Yeah.
So I'm going to have to stop beating myself up for the things that happened or what people think and say about me, and screw that. I'm happy because I know that.
Yeah.
And I can just look at myself and forgive within and say, well, screw that. I'm going to grow from this right now and just transcend, because I know that every time anything happens, I've always gotten through it. And every time anything happens, I've gotten better. I want to skip all the BS and notice that in the moment that I can transcend something and move forward by choosing to, by finding my peace and going forward. And I'm certainly not going to allow anyone in my life, anyone in my sphere, to do different with me. Yeah. And I want to do the same for them with all possibilities within me to convey that peace and that love. And I can't be around anything other than that. So
yeah, if I can metaphorically wrap what you're saying up, I feel like what you're saying is like, if we're in a video game, right? If we're in a video game, sometimes the side quest takes you down weird paths, but it all brings you back to the completion of the main story. It's no matter what problems come up, it's not about looking at them as this was the worst moment in my life, this was the best time in my life. It's looking about what did I learn from this moment? What did I learn from this moment? Is that what you're kind of saying?
Well, I just don't look at anything as a problem.
There you go. That's smart. I look at everything like it's a problem. I'm a short, angry man, and I can't change. I should change it. I can't change it.
Well, you're taller than a lot of people.
That's fair. Fair. There you go. I'm always positive already with the positivity. So Paula, how about for you? What's, if you want to give an example, like I said, you don't have to keep it vague, whatever, but maybe, a time in your life or someone else's where they have hit this sort of point of non-healthy life living, and how have they sort of grown, or you yourself?
Yeah, no, I'm pretty much an open book, so
yeah.
No problem there. This past year I was diagnosed with a chronic condition called Ehlers-Danlos syndrome.
Okay.
And so that comes with a lot of pain and annoying stuff. So there's that. And then in the meantime, I've lost track of how many people in our lives have died over the past 4 years, and I just, I'm 27 now. And I got to this point, I was just like so depressed and so pissed off at the whole world, and like, these things really beyond my controls. Like I thought my life was going this way, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, well, it's all these horrible adjustments and learning so much about my grief process, and I just kind of got to the point where it's like, I'm 27 years old, that's like 64 in punk years. I gotta like, this is like the prime, I'm not a spring chicken anymore, and I got to either commit to, just continuing to be self-destructive and pissed off and depressed and grieving, or I need to commit to doing the best that I can with whatever circumstances I have. And so trying, and I'm not somebody who is just like, accentuate the positive all the time. I'm more like, you know what, shit sucks, and let's just mosh and watch some Metalocalypse and wrestle and snuggle and
like, taking it to the extreme.
Yeah, and really like feeling life's pain, I think is really important, and so for me, when I was a kid, I learned how to deal with my problems by like cutting myself and burning myself and punching myself and all this stuff. And now it's like, well, maybe I don't do that so much anymore, but now it's tattoos and metal and etc.
Well, someone brought up to me once that like they're like, do you bite your nails because you're anxious? And part of me is like, maybe I'm anxious, maybe it's become a habit, maybe it's a low form of self-mutilation. You know what I mean? Like, it's a really weird thing, because my nails are effed up. Chris, you want to zoom in on these bad boys? Can we get a zoom in? No, mine are worse, Carby. You have actual fingernails. All right, that's enough. Are we good? Are we good? All right, cool. That's enough of my fingernails. They're real bad. But
sensory input,
sensory, and but I think what you're saying is being, knowing that the bad or the not so happy times happen, and to not be afraid of living those moments.
Yes.
Feel
it for what it
everything
is, but
with
then don't let
what
it
happened
crush
with
you.
with what happened with my mom made me a stronger, more sure of myself, more aware of who I want to be and how I want to live. Peter, how about you? Anything like that? Any sort of unhealthy habits you may have had that maybe you've worked through or something?
Oh yes, many unhealthy habits that I've worked through. Yeah, I don't think it's been one thing. It's just been a continual process of just constantly moving forward. Yeah. I find that, when I stop progressing in my own sort of like, self-care and mental health, and I just am stagnant, that's when I get in trouble.
Yeah.
So, moving forward can be like, you know what? I woke up this morning. You just got to take it one moment at a time. And, I really like the term a liquid definition of success. So it's constantly evolving for me. It's like, all right, I went to work today. Good job, Peter.
Yeah. I agree. I think that's very true, because, the hardest thing for some people is just getting out of bed each morning, and a lot of people will see that as a weak thing, but it's, that's a natural thing for someone. That's something, I think there's a weird world, right? We're in a weird world right now. We're one half will blame victims or sort of look at people who can't deal with it as weak or horrible. And I think on the other side, you have people who are fetishizing being depressed and being sad. And so there's this whole other side of like, well, it's my aesthetic that I'm sad. Yeah. And whether or not that is, does it discredit people who are really sad? Would someone who is really sad even say something or wear it on their sleeve like that? Is that something for me to even judge? You know what I mean?
Yeah,
so
and everybody has their own perspective.
Yeah.
Like, how are we, to say, oh, that person's sadder than that person?
That's true.
We're all our own experts.
Exactly. And I think everybody's an individual. And that's something, take out self-help, American people. We're all individuals.
For sure.
Judge people one by one. Identity politics is garbage. Sorry, tangent. But I think that's true. Is you got to judge different people and different everybody's got their own story to tell and their own life to live. And we're all on our own hero's journey, and the antagonist of our lives is life. So we're about at the end of the conversation here. I've been having a great time talking with you all, but I like to leave everybody off with the last piece of advice. So we'll start with you, Craig. Craig, for you seem like someone we're going to talk a lot more. If you want to just come on every week and hang out, I'm into that. But for you, what would you say is maybe one last piece of advice? Someone out there trying to get themselves better, trying to figure out what their inner peace is.
Well, when you see me sitting here, as you recognized, I'm doing well.
Yeah.
That's because I worked my butt off every day to do that. And I did not say a single word to anyone today, except my cat, or good morning till I walked in the door here. So, please recognize that anyone is going through a raging battle at any time. And the choice to transcend, the choice to be okay, the choice to be in the moment and to be well is what's going to help you be okay. So when you look at anybody, including, I can't speak for anyone else here, but for myself, it's not all a walk in the park, but definitely the roses are in my life.
There you go.
That's my choice.
And
I also want to say that this is the brand new book that we had just published, my co-author and I, Sherry, and truly, the way to peace is recognizing that the new traditions are the old ways. Before the internet and before everything that's happened in the past 30 years, people would just spend time with each other. They'd support each other. They'd knock on each other's doors and be there and bring meals to each other's homes and listen and talk and have mutual aid and support and community. And that is the way to peace. And that's the way of the future. Yeah,
I definitely agree. So where can we find more info about you online, maybe a place to buy your books?
Right now, just email me, please, at betterdaysrecovery@gmail.com, and within a week or two, our new website, betterdaysinternational.net, will be live.
Awesome. So either way, I'll share out Craig's profile on Facebook, or you have a Facebook page as well. I'll share that out. I'll share out the link for the website once that comes out as well.
Same here.
And if I'll send out his email as well. I'll give you all the info. I want to thank you again for coming on. His book, You're Crazy, as well as New Traditions, and then you also have it in different languages. I saw here.
Better Days.
Better Days.
You can hold them here.
Oh, I'll hold them. So you have the Better Days. These are workbooks, right? And so you can work with it to Craig's tips. I love the back picture. It's great. These are awesome.
They're not all the same.
So you can speak different languages too. Do they change for the region?
Well, time.
Understandable. But thank you again so much, Craig, for being on.
Thank you for having me.
Paula, how about you? What's one last piece of advice you'd like to give someone out there?
Yeah, I kind of have two that sort of go
Totally.
hand in hand. One of the best things I ever learned, I was at a training for preschool teachers and early educators, and they're talking about, families and stuff, and how we often have these judgments of parents, like we judge their parenting styles or their choices or whatever. And I was taught to turn judgments into I wonder questions. So rather than saying like, oh, this father, he just like drops his kid off like a sack of potatoes, it's horrible. Instead of thinking of it that way, to say, oh, I wonder how he was raised. I wonder what his values are, and when you and that goes for yourself too. And so the other piece is just changing negative self-speak. Yeah. Like I know myself, like I'm always like, oh, I'm such an idiot. I'm so stupid. And just trying to catch yourself in those moments, and instead of saying, oh, I'm not an idiot, actually. I am having a hard time doing this thing right now. Maybe I don't suck at this. Maybe I'm not as good at it yet as I would like to be. And just changing those, because we all have these tapes playing in our head of these voices we've heard our whole life saying, you're not good enough, you're stupid, you're fat, you're ugly, whatever it is. And if you can have if you can really be cognizant of that and change those tapes in your head, then eventually, I haven't gotten there yet, but eventually the automatic voice in your head will be, hey, buddy, you just haven't gotten it yet, instead of, you're an idiot.
Yeah. I think that's great, and it's changing. It's changing the way you think. The first part is like stepping into someone else's shoes. It's an easy way. I wonder why they're like this. That's stepping into someone's shoes. And I think the second part is you stepping into your own shoes to see how you see yourself. So that's awesome.
Treating yourself. You know, for me, it's like I work with kids. You know, and so one of the biggest things I kind of have to tell myself is like, Paula, treat yourself like you're a kid, and just be nice and kind and gentle. You know,
or just act like a kid, like I do.
Treat yourself like you would treat somebody else who you care about.
Very cool. So, Paula, do you have any music out right now? Do you have anything going on?
I am so lame in that I do not have a very good.
Well, I will share out Swamp Queen and Little Piggies old EP and some throwback stuff. I'll get some throwbacks out on the internet.
I do have a SoundCloud. It's the Surgical Theater, but I really don't. I need to do more to update.
Well, Paula did a secret performance for us. We're gonna be releasing a web exclusive soon. So, Peter, lastly, how about you? One last piece of advice.
Give yourself time.
Give yourself time.
You know, I think in this sort of fucked up society it's turned into, it's all instant.
Yeah.
And so if somebody's going down the journey of trying to better themselves, you know, physically or mentally or whatever, we all want it now.
Yeah.
And a lot of times people don't want to put in the hard work. But if you give yourself a break and give yourself time, you know, and just as long as you're moving forward, you're going towards your goal.
That's awesome. I think that's a great piece of advice.
Incremental steps can turn into leaps and bounds.
Seeing the big picture.
Less is more, man.
Less is more, exactly. All right, well, I've had a great time seeing you all. Thank you all for coming on.
Thank you.
We got one last music video. Guest last episode were Henry Flower. He just released a music video. We got that live queued up for you. So we're going to go to the music video, and when we come back, we got a performance from Ozlo. So get psyched, and we'll be right back. Hey everybody, we're back here on DIY the Mother Flippin' Show. I want to thank you all for watching. Thank you all for hanging out. At the end of the show, I like to say what I think I learned today, and what I really think I learned today is stuff I already knew. You know, I think being self-aware, giving yourself a chance, and taking a step back is the real key to getting that self-help across. You know, when we talk about self-help, we're not just talking about drinking water and working out more. What I really want is for you, the audience, to take a second, think about how you're living your life, and maybe how it's negatively affecting you, or whether or not you have some bad practices. So like Paula said, be more positive to yourself, step in other people's shoes. Peter said, you know, you need to give yourself time. And Craig's got that positive attitude that I'm going to work on. So I want to thank all my guests for being on. But before I get into all of this, I want to let my live band before me play. This is Ozlo. They're local, so check them out on the internet. They're going to play some songs for us. So let's get a round of applause for Ozlo, everybody! All right, everybody. Let's hear it one last time for Ozlo, everybody. Everybody put their hands up for Ozlo. Thank you guys so much for playing. Thank you so much. That was amazing. I want to thank you all for watching. This has been DI Flippin' Y. We'll be around next week. We're talking about audience participation, so I want you to show up and be part of the audience. Either way, you're watching DIY. Let's play some music and get out of here.
It's time for DIY. It's time for DIY. It's time for DIY.